his most resplendent arms, since he did overshine the whole heroic host of Greece in power of that design. Who did in Lacedaemon's rule the unmeasured concave hold, high Pharis, Sparta, Messe's towers, for doves so much extolled, Brycia's and Augea's grounds, strong La, Etilin, Amyclus, Helos harbor town, that Neptune beats upon. All these did Menelaus lead, his brother, that in cries of war was his brother, that in cries lead, his brother, that in cries of war was famous. 60 ships conveyed these enemies of 60 ships was famous. 60 cries of war was famous. 60 ships conveyed these enemies to Troy in chief, because their king was chiefly injured there. Did his best to make them, who dwelt in Pylos' sandy soil. Ships conveyed these enemies to Troy in chief, because their king was chiefly injured there in Helen's rape, and did his best to make them buy it dear. To make them buy it dear. Who dwelt in Pylos and make them buy it, and did his best to make them buy it dear. To make them buy it dear. Rape, and did his best injured there in Helen's rape, and did there in Helen's rape, and did his best to make them buy it dear. Who dwelt in Pylos' sandy soil, and Arene the fair, in Thryon near Alpheus flood, and Ephe full of air, in Kyparissus Amphigen, and little in Kyparissus Amphigen, and little Ephe full of air, in Ephe full of air, in Kyparissus Amphigen, and little Legin, and little Amphigen, and little Amphigen, and Amphigen, and little Telion, the town where all the Iliads dwelt, and famous Dorion, where the muses opposite in strife of poesy to ancient Thamyris of Thrace did use him cruelly. He, coming from Eurytus' court, the wise Icalian king, because he proudly dost affirm he could more sweetly sing than that Pierian race. The wise Icalian king, because he proudly because he proudly durst affirm he could more sweetly sing, because he proudly durst affirm he could king, because he proudly durst affirm he could more sweetly sing than that Pierian race of Jove, who, angry with his vaunt, bereft his eyesight and his song, and did that bereft his eyesight and his song, and did his song, and did the ear enchant, and to his and did the ear enchant, and did the ear enchant, and to his and his song, and did the ear enchant, and of his skill to touch his harp disfurnished his hand. All these in 90 hollow keels, all these in 90 hollow keels, all these in 90 hollow keels, 90 hollow keels, grave 90 hollow keels, grave Nestor did command. 90 hollow keels, grave Nestor did command. Grave Nestor did command. grave Nestor did command. The richly blessed inhabitants of the Arcadian land, below Selene's mount, that by Epita's tomb did stand, where dwelt the bold near-fighting men who in Phaenis live, and Orchomen, where flocks the shepherds clustering and Orchomen, where flocks clustering driv, in Rhipae and in who in Selene's mount, that by Epita's tomb did stand, where dwelt the bold near-fighting men who in Phaenis live, and Orchomen, where flocks of sheep the shepherds clustering driv, in Rhipae and in clustering driv, shepherds clustering driv, sheep the shepherds clustering driv, in Stratiae and in shepherds clustering driv, in Rhipae and in Stratiae, shepherds clustering driv, in Rhipae and in Stratiae, the fair Mantinean town, and strong in clustering driv, in driv, shepherds clustering driv, in Rhipae and in Stratiae, the fair Mantinean town, and strong in Nispe, that for height is ever weather-blown, and strong in Nispe, that for Mantinean town, and strong in Nispe, that for height is ever weather-blown, Tegea and in Stymphalus, Parasia strongly walled, strongly walled. All these Alcaeus' son to field, King Agapenor called. In 60 barks he brought them on, and every bark well manned with fierce Arcadians, skilled to use the fierce Arcadians, with fierce Arcadians, skilled to use the utmost of a band. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships bestow. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships bestow. To pass the gulfy purple sea that no sea rights did know, with fierce Arcadians, skilled to use the utmost of a band. With fierce Arcadians, skilled to use the utmost of a band. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships bestow. On these men did well-built ships. These ships did well-built ships. A band. King Agamemnon on these men did well-built ships bestow, to pass the gulfy purple sea, that no on these men did well-built ships bestow, to pass the gulfy purple sea, that ships bestow, to pass the gulfy purple sea, that no sea rights did know. They who in Hermon, that no sea purple sea, that no sea rights did know. They who in Hermon, Bouphrasis, and who in Hermon, Bouphrasis, and Elis, Hermon, Bouphrasis, and they who in Hermon, Bouphrasis, and Elis did remain, what Olen's cliffs, Alysius, and Murson did contain, were led to war by twice 2 dukes, and each 10 ships did bring, which many venturous Epeans did serve for burthening, beneath Amphimachus' charge, and valiant Thalpius, son of Eurytus, actor 1, the other Cteatus. The other Cteatus, actor 1, the other Cteatus, Eurytus, son of Eurytus, actor 1, son of Eurytus, actor 1, and Valenthalpius, son of Eurytus, actor 1, the other Cteatus. The other Cteatus, Diaries, actor 1, the other Cteatus. Diaries, actor 1, the other Cteatus. Cteatus. Diores Amarincides, the other did employ. Diores Amarincides, the Cteatus. Diores Amarincides, Cteatus. Diores Amarincides, the other did employ. The fourth, divine Polyxenus, Agasthenes' joy. The king of fair Aganades, the fourth, divine Polyxenus, Agasthenes' joy. The other did employ. The fourth, divine Polyxenus, Agasthenes' joy. The king of fair Aganades, from the king of fair Agasthenes' joy. From who Lycus, Agasthenes' joy. Agasthenes' joy. From Dulichius, Agasthenes' joy. The king of fair Angaiades, from the king of fair Angaiades, who from Dulichius joy. And from who from Polyxenus, Agasthenes' joy. The king of fair Angaiades, who from Dulichius came. Who from Dulichius came, and from Echinacus' sweet isles, who from Dulichius came, who from Dulichius came, and from which hold their holy Dulichius came, and from Echinacus' sweet isles, which hold their holy frame by ample Elis, which hold their holy frame by ample Elis, which sweet isles, which hold their holy frame by ample Elis region. By ample Elis region, Phylides led. By ample Elis region, Meges, Phylides, which hold their holy frame by ample Elis region, Meges, Phylides led, whom Duke Phyleus Phylides led. Meges, Phylides led. Meges, Phylides led. Meges, Phylides led, whom Duke Phyleus Jove's beloved begat, and whilom fled to large whilom fled to large, and whilom fled to large Dulichius for the wrath that fired his father's breast. Twice 20 ships with ebon sails were in his charge addressed. The warlike men of Cephaly and those of Ithaca, woody Neritus and the men of wet Crocilia, Neritus and the men of and the woody Neritus and the men of wet Crocilia, and the men of wet Crocilia, Sharp Egilipa, Samos Isle, Zacynthus, Gilipa, Samos Isle, Zacynthus, sea enclosed, Epirus, and the men that hold the continent opposed, all these did wide Ulysses lead, in council peer to Jove. 12 ships he brought, which in their course vermilion sterns did move. The continent opposed, all these did wise Ulysses lead, in council peer to Jove. 12 ships he brought, which in their course vermilion which in their course vermilion sterns did move. Epirus and the men that hold the continent opposed, all these did wide Ulysses lead. All these did wise Ulysses. In council 12 ships he brought. All these did wise Ulysses. Opposed, all these did wise Ulysses lead, in council peer to Jove. 12 ships he brought, which in their course vermilion sterns did move. The continent opposed, ships he brought, which in their course vermilion sterns did move. Which in their course sterns did move. Thoas, Andramon's well-spoke son, did guide the Aetolians well, those that in Pleuron, Olenon, and strong Pylene dwell. The horse that bore the faultless men did the Halizonians guide, with all the seaside bore Zacynthus sea enclosed, Epirus and the men that hold the continent opposed, all these did wise Ulysses lead, in council peer to Jove. 12 ships he brought, which in their course vermilion sterns did move. Thoas, Andramon's well-spoke son, did guide the Aetolians well, those that in Pleuron, Olenon, and strong Pylene dwell. Great Callis, that by seaside stands, and stony Caledon, for no more of Aeneas' sons survived, they all stony Caledon, for stony Caledon, they all were gone, stony Caledon, for now no more of Aeneas' sons survived, they all were gone. They all were gone. Survived, they all were gone. No more his royal self did live, no more his noble son, the golden Meleager now, their glasses all were run. All glasses all were run. All were run. All things were left to him in charge. The Aetolians' chief he was, and 40 ships. The Aetolians' chief he was. Chief he was, and 40 ships to Trojan wars the seas with him did pass. To Trojan wars the seas with him did pass. Trojan wars the seas with to Trojan wars the seas with him did pass. The royal soldier Idomen did lead the royal soldier pass. The royal soldier Idomen did lead the Cretans stout, the men of Gnossus and the town Gortyna walled about, of Lyctus and Miletus, the men of Gnossus and the town Gortyna walled about, of Lyctus and Miletus towers, of white Lycassus state, of Phaestus and of Rhytius, the cities fortunate, and all the rest inhabiting the 100 towns of Crete, whom warlike Idomen did lead, co-partner in the fleet with Kilman Marai, with whom warlike Idomen did lead, warlike co-partner in the warlike Idomen did lead, 100 towns of Crete, whom warlike Idomen did lead, co-partner in the fleet with Kilman Marian. 80 ships with them did Troy invade. 80 ships with them did Troy invade. Kilman Marion, 80 ships with them did Troy invade. That I rattled off really. With Kilman Marion, 80 ships with them. Kilman in the fleet with Kilman Marion. With Kilman Marion. 80 ships with them did Troy invade. Them did Troy invade. Tlepolemus Heraclides, right strong and bigly made, brought 9 tall ships up. Bigly. Tlepolemus Heraclides, right strong and bigly made, brought nine tall. Heraclides, right strong and bigly made, brought right strong and bigly made, brought 9 tall ships of war from Rhodes, which not of war from Rhodes, which from Rhodes, which haughty from Rhodes, which haughty Rhodians manned, who dwelt in 3 dissevered parts of that most pleasant land, which Lindus and Gelissus were, and bright Camyrus called. Tlepolemus commanded these in battle unappalled, whom fair Astyache brought forth by force of Hercules, let out of Ephur with his hand from river Selles. Ephur with his hand from river Selles, when many towns Selles. When many towns of Ephur with his hand, let out of Ephur with his hand from Ephur. Of Ephur with his hand, let out of Ephur with his hand. Let out of Ephur with his hand from river Selles. When many towns of princely youths he leveled Selles. From river Selles. When many towns of princely youths he leveled with the ground. Tlepolem in his father's house, for building much renowned, brought up to headstrong state of youth, his mother's brothers slew. Much renowned, brought up to headstrong state of youth, his mother's brothers slew. With the ground, Tlepolem in his father's house, for building much renowned, brought up to headstrong state of youth, his mother's brothers slew. The flower of arms Lysimnius, that somewhat aged grew. Then straight he gathered him a fleet, assembling bands of men, and fled by sea to shun the threats that were denounced then by other sons and nephews of the Alcidon fortitude. Sons and nephews of the Alcidon fort denounced then by other threats that were denounced then by other sons and nephews of the Alcidon fortitude. many towns of princely youths he levelled with the ground. Tlepolemus in his father's house, for building much renowned, brought up to headstrong state of youth, his mother's brothers slew. The flower of arms, Licymnius, that somewhat aged grew. Then straight he gathered him a fleet, assembling bands of men, and fled by sea to shun the threats that were denounced then by other sons and nephews of the Alcidon fortitude. He came in his exile to Rhodes, driven in with tempests rude. The Rhodians were distinct in tribes, and great